Hey everyone! Welcome back to Anime Sekai Podcast. I'm your host, Mikan.
And I am your other host, Ichigo. What's up, guys? Welcome
What's
back.
up? Welcome back. Thanks for joining us again this week as we discuss the question, should Inuyasha be considered a top tier shonen? Hello, everybody.
Hey, guys. Welcome back.
Welcome back. This one's gonna be a good one, I feel like, because I think we're gonna be talking about what I know is one of Ichigo's favorite, Inuyasha,
Yes.
and whether if Inuyasha
Yes.
should be a contender for being in the place of a top tier shonen. So I already know your answer. I already know your answer
Yes.
for this one. Hands down, yes. Is it a full yes?
I would say for me personally, yes. Simply because out of all the shonen anime that I've watched,
Mm-hmm.
that is the one that will always hold dear in my heart. And I've watched quite a few shonen, despite me talking about I love
Yeah.
shoujo. Don't get me wrong, but for me, Inuyasha is like top tier. Now, is it top
Mm-hmm.
like 5 or top 3? No,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still in like my top list for shonen overall.
Okay. Now, my other actually question is, you know how they have, okay, let's say
Mhm.
A through F tier, or maybe
Oh
that's too
yeah,
many,
the tier.
A through E, or what tier would you put it at? Like in overall anime? Like not just
Oh, for
shonen, but
like
like
my
overall.
like
Is
my
it still
personal
an A
preference.
tier? Yeah, like overall, when you think of anime, does it go in your A tier section?
Probably B tier actually.
B tier. Okay.
If I'm doing personal preference. I think
Mm-hmm.
for anime overall, it may be even like a C tier.
Mm-hmm.
I know for some people even lower than that, but
Mm-hmm.
I still think Inuyasha should be considered pretty high up there for shonen because it's got all the action. Like, I understand that there's still a huge romance aspect to it, but
Yeah.
it still has all the action and it doesn't seem like it's repetitive. And repetitive in the sense of like, okay, we go over here, we fight the bad guy, we defeat the bad guy, now we gotta go over here, fight the bad guy, defeat the bad guy. Like how I feel like a lot of other shonen does. Like it still kind of
Mm-hmm.
follows that same concept, but I feel like every single fight has a different meaning behind it. Like they're not just fighting each low level person in order to work their way up to Naraku.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have fights that are geared towards Sango. It might be part of her history, or it might be part of Miroku's history, or it might even be part of Inuyasha's history. And I think that aspect of it is important because with a lot of other shonen, for example, no knock whatsoever to Demon Slayer. Okay? Don't come for me, y'all. I'm not knocking Demon Slayer. But what I am noticing is they're going through the lower level demons and they're just going up and up and up and up. And they're like just leveling up of all the demons that they got to fight until they get to Muzan, right? And
Mm-hmm.
along the way, they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger, which is great. But it's still like, okay, guys, we got to go and we got to fight this person. Okay, we've defeated them. We're going to train some more, get stronger, and now we're going to go to the next person.
Yeah.
But in Inuyasha, it's like they fight all of them at once. Kind of.
Okay. Okay. This is really interesting because I thought you would say a different thing, but I might have the exact opposite opinion of
I know you do. I know 100% for a fact that you do.
So the thing was, I thought you were going to come in and say more about the plot and like the romance aspect, and that's what made it good. But I'm kind of surprised you went with the fighting.
I would say more so if I'm thinking of shonen type, typically shonen doesn't have a whole lot of romance.
Yeah.
So if we're saying a top tier shonen, I have to consider the fighting aspect of it, not just the romance aspect.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, do I think it's a top tier shonen? I think for its time when it first came out, it brought a different perspective. And I do think
Hmm.
at the current time, although they were really greats, like the greats were still coming out during that time and coming out at honestly almost exactly the same time. Um, it
Hmm.
still managed to find like a niche market in a sense that catered toward,
Yeah.
not just boys but also girls. And a lot of people did call it like, oh, the Dragon Ball Z for girls or the Naruto for girls, which I do think that in some sense that is true. But because it did have, in my opinion, a bit of a different sort of perspective, where, if I'm being honest, I think where Inuyasha failed was the fight sequences and all of that,
Really?
where yes, where other shonen did that really well, even for the animation at the time.
Hmm.
um they made fight sequences super hype, or they made it like more complex, hand to hand combat or different styles of fighting. Inuyasha was very basic in a
Hmm.
sense of, he's swinging his sword. Like, I'm specifically talking about like the fighting styles. He's swinging his sword, and I do think
Yeah.
Inuyasha falls into the same cliches of a lot of shonen. They just add a little bit more different types of cliches with the inclusion of the romance. And I do think the growth of characters, well, in my opinion, from the
Yeah.
beginning of the show to the end of the show. And I feel if we're talking specifically more on the plot, it was more, that's the aspect I would be like, watch it for more so the plot, if that makes sense. Watch it for the character growth, watch it for
Hmm.
the plot, versus watch it from an aspect of like, it's gonna be a typical shonen and the fights are gonna be good. I would never say it like that, because I think if someone went in watching it that way, it would not be enjoyable at all. And in that sense, I just feel like it misses the mark of what maybe like a majority of people would categorize as what usually is the strong suits of shonen type stories. And
Hmm.
I remember reading this many years ago, but somebody said Inuyasha is like the Burger King of anime, where in all other aspects, McDonald's will always be superior. But Burger King is also not too bad. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly how I see it. But I will also say, as time goes on, in my personal opinion, I feel like it hasn't aged that well. And I don't know what it is exactly, because a lot of other older shows, they're just old. You know what I mean? It's the same with Inuyasha. They get old. Certain comedy
Hmm.
aspects get old. Certain, animation styles get old. But there's something about Inuyasha that is, in my opinion, a little bit more cringy. And not just cringy, but also almost forgetful. Like, when people are talking
Mm.
about older style anime, I feel like, especially nowadays, even like millennials, I don't really hear Inuyasha being brought up often. And I can't really pinpoint why exactly that is. But there are other shows that I feel like maybe are on par similarly, like Ranma, like, is where I put this a similar category as Inuyasha, and that one's also forgotten often. And I don't know why. Like, that's the thing. I'm like, I don't know why, because
Well,
I
I think.
also feel like Yu Yu Hakusho and Rurouni Kenshin are still talked about. You know what I mean? And today, when people bring up
Mm.
anime, but Inuyasha is like, I feel like I put it in the similar category, and yet it's not as considered. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but
Well, for me, I might put Rurouni Kenshin kind of in the same category as Inuyasha because of the romance aspect in
mm-hmm.
Rurouni Kenshin, but
Yeah.
with Yu Hakusho, I would kind of leave that one alone
Yeah.
because the if you're specifically thinking of like the added romance to it, it wasn't as much as Rurouni Kenshin or Inuyasha. Like
Oh yeah,
Inuyasha, it
yeah.
was blatantly in your face.
Yeah.
Rurouni Kenshin, it was subtle, but it was still kind of in your face. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But the reason I think, for me personally, Inuyasha is just so, I can't say it's bigger than Yu Yu Hakusho because I feel like the audience is different. Like
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
audience is going to be different with Inuyasha than it is with Yu Yu Hakusho. With Yu Yu Hakusho, you see more of a male audience. With Inuyasha, you have a blend. You have a male audience that are there for the action pack, and then you have the female audience who's there for the romance with a little bit of action, but also the character development, so on and so forth. Um, I think for our generation, Inuyasha was actually pretty big.
Oh yeah. I think
And the
yeah, during that
older
time
we
it
get,
was.
the more shonen that people have watched. And so I think that's why maybe it could be a little bit more cliche and could be a little bit more forgetful. But I
Mhm.
think we also have to remember that, like, a lot of shonen that came after Inuyasha, like, to me, there's still some things in those particular shonen that remind me of Inuyasha. Like,
Yeah.
less so the um romance aspects, but more so like some of the fight scenes, or like you just have somebody swinging a sword around. Like, if you're thinking in terms of that, then that's what Tanjiro and them are doing too. Like, they're not throwing too many punches, they're literally just swinging their swords around, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Same thing for Rurouni Kenshin. Now, Yu Hakusho, he literally throwing punches, but he's also using like spiritual magical energy to fight. With Inuyasha, I think in the beginning, yes, I could kind of see it being a little cringy, but as the storyline progresses and as the seasons progress, the story gets better.
Yeah.
There's
And I
still
agree.
kind of like some cliche fights, but it's definitely like towards the end of Inuyasha, and even Inuyasha the final act, which is where they finally defeat Naraku. I think those, and like later seasons when the animation kind of changed, that's what, to me, what made it a lot better. Now,
Mhm.
what I will also add, what makes Inuyasha good for me personally, is growing up, you always had the shonen that had like the best songs. So, for example, like opening, closing songs. So
Yeah.
everybody knows like Bluebird from Naruto Shippuden, and then We
Mhm.
Are from One Piece. But I can guarantee you that a majority of millennials know word from word a majority of those Japanese songs, because they weren't translated like a lot of the
Yeah.
other
No, they were
songs. That's
not.
the other cool thing about Inuyasha, is they left the songs alone. They were like, this song is amazing. All of the openings, all of the closings, I can guarantee all anime fans from the 90s, like early 2000s, all millennial anime fans know a majority of those songs. Not only
Mhm.
that, the background music.
Mhm. That's why they had good production. That was the one thing I think Inuyasha
Mm-hmm.
really was able to pull through. Like they had good production.
Good production. I mean, the songs were perfect. And I'm trying to think, I could be wrong, but I'm trying to think, like, not a lot of shonen outside of Inuyasha, except for maybe Full Metal Alchemist and maybe Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. But I want to say, with a lot of like the background music in Inuyasha, with all of the different fight scenes, everything was always on point. I feel like even like as the characters are talking, you hear a little bit of each character's own individual background song. So like if Inuyasha and Kikyo are in the same scene, you hear the song that is supposed to represent them and their love, or their past love,
Yeah, yeah, they usually have a
while they are
soundtrack for
talking,
each, yeah, each character,
right?
each segment,
But
yeah.
each character, each segment, but I feel like with a lot of shonen now, the only real like big music that I hear is during the fight scenes. You don't hear a whole lot of music going on,
What?
at least not that I've noticed. Not that I've
No, they
noticed. At
got a
least
lot.
not well, not ones that like it kind of pulls you in, for me personally,
Mm-hmm.
into the scene. Like with Inuyasha, all of the background music, I feel like it's pulling me into the scene. Like I'm standing in front of Inuyasha and Kikyo going back and forth while the music is playing. I'm just like, guys, don't fight. You love each other. And then, Kagome comes out of
Yeah.
nowhere and she's just like,
Yeah.
ah.
I mean, I would say like that's one of the things that was really popular. And Naruto like had the sad song. Everyone knew how to play that on the piano. Like everyone and their mother knew how to play that on the piano. I was
But that's what I'm
no, yeah, I
saying.
do
Like with
think yeah.
Inuyasha, Naruto, Full Metal Alchemist, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, like you know all of the background music with those. But these
Yeah.
newer shonen shows, I feel like
Really?
don't really have just
Cuz
the
like
newer ones. For
new ones like
me.
what okay, well for me I'm like cuz like I think of like one that comes to mind like just now like My Hero has a really strong soundtrack for like even like all their character like not even like before the fight scenes, like sad moments. I know Attack on Titan was huge for their soundtrack. They had a
Yeah.
really good. I mean, Hiroyuki Sawano like is a magician. One of my favorite composers is a magician with music. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
what else? Yeah, but I do feel like there's because for me, the one thing I think about music because I don't really hear a lot of music in shoujo anime. That's the one thing they have more like cutesy like that
Yeah.
because or sad music, either or. Um, but they don't have that hype songs like they do in like shonen anime. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Inuyasha did have a
That's
wonderful soundtrack.
beautiful. I'm pretty sure the Inuyasha soundtrack got everybody on Boa.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
Like, do you know how many anime fans became a fan of Boa?
yeah,
Not only Boa, Ayumi, Hayasaki, Kaoru, I believe his name is Kaoru Wade, who does a majority of like the background music. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank. But so many others.
yeah,
Waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning with that iconic song,
yeah,
and Sashomaru standing on top of like Inuyasha and Sashomaru's dad's bones, I guess is the
yeah.
best way to describe
I
that.
suppose. No, really, it is.
You know, like that. Not saying other shonen does not have that aspect, but Inuyasha for me personally is like top tier when it comes to that. Inuyasha and
Mm.
then Full Metal Alchemist, the original, not Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Like it kind of just pulls you into the story a little bit more, and I think that's
Yeah.
probably why it's considered a top tier for me, because it kind of drew me into the story a lot more. Like especially the
I can
romance
see that.
aspect of it, the fighting scenes.
Yeah.
And you can't forget the good looking characters, okay? Like,
I mean, that's what drew in a
oh,
huge female fan base. I mean, people who didn't even
I
watch
know.
anime, like, were a lot of, particularly a lot of girls, like, were really into, which is why I feel like it, in that sense, it really did bring in a different type of audience, which I
Mm-hmm.
really like. But I just feel like if we're talking about shonen, for me, it just did not make the cut. It's just missing something. It doesn't do that aspect well enough because I do feel like it's very plot driven. And in that respect, it's really
Mm.
good. So, in general, as an anime, it's still for me like a C tier, but I would say it's like pretty good, like overall. But as a shonen, I feel like for me, that's where it kind of failed, where it really could have done better. Because I do think the fights could have been like extremely well done. It just never
Mm-hmm.
went to that point. But like the production itself, the character development, all those things, like the story wise, and because I do think it was more plot driven, that works. Like it works overall very good. But it's missing that like
Yeah.
shonen oomph for me. That's why
It's
it
not
this
missing for me. It was there.
It's
It
missing a
was
bit of
there.
that little
Now
oomph.
I think like if I'm thinking in my head, if I were to compare it to like, for example, Rurouni Kenshin, like Rurouni
Mm-hmm.
Kenshin had a lot more intense fight scenes.
Yeah.
I think Inuyasha did as well, but like Rurouni Kenshin really had like the fight scenes where you kind of like it almost made you hold your breath. But with Inuyasha, there were slightly fewer moments like that. And then obviously
Yeah.
with Yu Hakusho, there was a lot of moments like that where you kind of had to hold your breath and then see what happens type.
Yeah. See, the thing is, a lot of like typical shonen that's not as high risk, and what I mean by high risk is like where people get killed off constantly, like Jesus Kaisen.
Mm.
Um, the other shonen that's does is not high risk like that. There's something about them that they have where it's like even during the fight, you know the outcome, but there's something like that keeps you pulled in, if that makes sense. And I feel like
Right.
Inuyasha really needed that because it's very low risk in my opinion. There was like no risk in Inuyasha. Like I'm not about to sit here and be like, oh my god, who's gonna die next? You know, it wasn't that kind of show. So, but yet it
Yeah.
kind of missed on there was like no risk involved. So I think that was another aspect. But I'm like, other shonen did that fine, and yet something about Inuyasha, I was like, oh, they're gonna be fine. They're just gonna fight, and they're gonna go on to the next battle. And I don't know, there was just something about the risk that was like, there's just not enough. Just needs a little bit more of a high risk situation.
Well, the main risk to Inuyasha was if Naraku got all of the jewel shards, or even a majority of the jewel shards, the world would be in peril.
Mm-hmm.
That was the main risk. Now, then, along the way, it's like, okay, well, we can't fight with Inuyasha on, I believe it was a new moon because he turns into a human, and you got Sesshomaru trying to track down Inuyasha in order to get his sword back. So it's kind of like little itty bitty risks, I guess.
Yeah.
But the main one was, okay, we don't want Naraku to get all of the jewel shards because then it's game over.
Yeah.
But for Moroku, he had the biggest risk. That wind
Mm-hmm.
tunnel in his hand,
Yeah.
if it got bigger, it was pretty much going to suck up everything and everybody, and could nobody do anything about it.
Yeah.
But even though he had the most risk, he was still putting his life on the line because he didn't know when all of a sudden he was just going to suck in everything and everybody, and then it's pretty much game over for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the thing. So I remember seeing this. Somebody mentioned this, and I was like, this was many years ago, and I was like, you know what? That's actually I agree with that. So I feel like for me, it's
Mm-hmm.
almost it's probably closer to a shonen than a shoujo, but if anything, I feel like it's almost more closer to like an isekai, where you have one of the main characters gets isekai basically. And I feel like it fits in that genre more so than it does in like a typical shonen category.
Technically, it would be an isekai specifically because of Kagome.
Yeah.
It is an isekai if that is the case. But typically with isekais, you can't keep going back and forth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess some of
At
them,
least in
but
my
yeah.
head.
Yeah.
Some of them, yes, but you can't keep going back and forth between the two worlds. Like you get trapped there.
Yeah.
She wasn't trapped. She could have decided, look, this is too much. I ain't coming back. See y'all
Hmm.
later.
Yeah.
Y'all have fun. Because what they also didn't specify is, let's say Naraku got all of the jewel shards. Does that change Kagome's future? I
Mm.
think that would have been a perfect aspect for Kagome. Like that would have been her risk to join the fight.
Yeah.
Like, look, the future is fine. I need to make sure that Naraku doesn't get all of these because if he does, then he's going to change the future, and I don't have time for him to change the future.
Yeah.
Like that would have made more sense, but it didn't seem like that was the case.
There wasn't a lot, like, see, the thing is, I feel like one of the really good aspects that Inuyasha had was sort of their plot and their setting, if you know what I mean, the other world. And I
Mhm.
feel like they never delved into that and the rules of the other world and whatnot. And I really wish they would have gone that route instead of like trying to be so hard and to fit into like a typical shonen mold, if you will. Because I feel like that's
Mhm.
what was being done. Like, oh, we have to add more of these fights because it has to sort of fit into the shonen genre. But I'm like, if you would have delved onto
Mhm.
that plot, if you would have delved into the setting, because it was honestly, it had a great setting. It just never went into those
Mhm.
details that would have been interesting to know. I think it really would have been at least a B tier or even maybe an A tier, depending if the characters were a little more complex overall. But I do think where it failed was
Mm.
that it tried to stay within the genre of shonen, in my opinion, which is kind of ironic because it's supposed to be a shonen.
Yeah, it was like it's still like the perfect blend, I think. I still think it's pretty popular compared to other shows,
Yeah,
Rurouni
I do think
Kenshin.
it's still well known
Now,
overall anime, but I think
yeah.
shonen, I don't see it like I can't really like if people are talking about good shonen, I feel like it's just not one that's brought up. If it's like talking about nostalgic anime or anime in general, yes.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like it depends on who you're talking to, too. Like if you're talking to me and you're like, "Oh, hey, what's one of your favorite shonen?" I might pull out like I know for a fact I'm going to say Inuyasha, but I might also bring up Yu Yu Hakusho, Rurouni Kenshin,
Mhm.
and some others. Well, now Jujutsu Kaisen as well, and some others. But but Inuyasha for me is always going to be on my list. And even now,
Yeah.
like with how popular anime is getting, we're starting to see an increase in anime goods within the United
Yeah.
States. Like, I went to Box Lunch not too long ago, and they had a whole Inuyasha section. Mind you, it was
Mhm.
small, but there was still an Inuyasha section.
Yeah.
And that surprised me because I'm like, me as a millennial, I remember this show. I remember when it was on TV. But the generations of anime fans that came in after me probably don't know this show. This now makes them, look it up and go check it out, or
Yeah.
maybe they're just putting out this merchandise to
I,
remind millennials
I
how
I
old we're
mean,
getting.
yeah. I mean, I still think the majority of millennials are probably the ones buying anime goods, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's true, but I have seen some younger generation that have gone in and have bought anime goods.
Yeah. I also think
I
it's
was
like
just shocked to
now,
even see anything in Inuyasha in a store nowadays.
I mean, because they also did like not too long ago, they've had their remake, like not the remake, but like the continuation and stuff like that. So I feel like it's been sort of renewed, in a similar way of like Bleach, how it continued and they're still making seasons
Mm,
now, something like that. So I feel like it's like not necessary. It's old, but it's still new, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah.
but if that's the case, why are they not putting out Yashahime goods? Like, I don't see any Yashahime goods in stores.
I
I
I
see
I
Inuyasha.
I actually, yeah, regarding that, I actually feel like almost feel the same way with like certain Bleach things. It's because they're
Hmm.
not as popular now, if that makes sense. But it kind of revitalized what was popular, and because it's sort of
Mm,
they're still gonna sell it, but they bring the original stuff that was popular. At least that's how I see it.
I don't know. I feel like you can't really put the popularity of Yashahime onto Inuyasha because personally, I think Yashahime was a little bit of a flop compared to Inuyasha, and
Mm-hmm.
I hate comparing the two because they're two different storylines, polar opposites of each other.
Yeah.
Inuyasha is about Inuyasha and Kagome, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Yashahime is about Sesshomaru and Rin's twin girls.
Yeah.
And then Inuyasha and Kagome's daughter is like the backup character.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of like, I know I can't compare it. Don't compare it. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I was like,
Yeah.
this don't make no sense. You know, if it's supposed to be like the next generation, kind of like Naruto and Boruto, if it's supposed to be the next generation of story, you would think this story main character would be Inuyasha and Kagome's daughter, not Sesshomaru and Ren's daughters.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just me. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Continuation stories are about the main character. If you're going to have generations, it's going to be about the main character's kids.
Maybe they were just like, well,
not the side characters' kids.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, Sesshomaru and Ren, like at the end of Inuyasha, it didn't seem like they had made a point to show that they was even together.
Yeah.
Until Yashahime comes out and they're like, hey guys, so Sesshomaru and Ren got married and they had twins, and now those twins have been separated and they're trying to find each other. Well, one has her memory, the other one doesn't have a memory, and Ren has been captured and she's been cursed, and Sesshomaru is tracking everybody down, trying to take out everybody in order to save Ren, including throwing his kids under the bus.
Great father. Great dad. Truly, truly one of the best anime dads out there.
The lies.
I'm sure Rin is proud. So happy.
I'm pretty sure Ren was like, didn't I tell you? If anything were to happen to me to take care of the kids, what are you doing?
I don't know. She might be the type that's like, forget them kids. Come save me.
I highly doubt that. Oh my gosh.
I mean, to marry a man like that, you probably have to be a little bit crazy.
I can't say nothing because I still put him on my villains crush list, okay? So I can't say nothing.
Look, I don't disagree with that. It's just, to be a wife for a villain like that, you kind of have to be a little bit cuckoo, you know?
I don't think she was cuckoo. I think she probably just changed him a little bit, because think about it. Sesshomaru, every time he saw Inuyasha, he was like, ugh, you and your ugly human blood. Like, he was really dogging out Inuyasha's mom. And Inuyasha's mom was beautiful. Only to turn around and fall in love with the human, marry her, and have kids.
I mean,
himself.
From the get-go, she was a little weird too. Like, he was just over here like killing people, and she's just like like
she didn't have any human interaction, because remember, her village got taken out by Naraku's
people. That's why she's a little cuckoo. Like, she was cuckoo from the get-go.
She just thought that was normal. Kind of, maybe. I don't know. I'm not Ren.
Yeah, no, she was already, her brain was already a little bit different at that point. Oh God.
But either way it goes, for me personally, Inuyasha will always be in my top tier shonen list. Is it at number 1 or in the top 5? Technically no, but it's still in the top.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And as for me, as I said before, Inuyasha is like the Burger King of anime, where there's much better options, such as McDonald's. But you guys, let us know what you think, because we're really interested. Is Inuyasha a top tier shonen? Is it like a top tier anime as well? Like, what tier would you guys put it in? And as always, of course, please follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Anime Sekai Podcast. We will be here again next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. See you next week.